Line's good.
Never on.
Close.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Sean. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's a lovely time here in Ottawa.
Yeah, nice, hot. You know, we're in the dead of summer now.
Sure.
And it's June, which maybe is maybe not the dead of summer, but it's gotten really hot. We're not used to it yet. So, you know, we're just coping, doing what we can.
Yeah, just plugging along, doing things that we do, and looking forward to potentially another curling season as, you know, we signed up for our rec league this week.
That's right, Sean. We did sign up. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, so nobody has any idea what the rules might be at the local curling facility here, nor when we might start, what the if there's mass policy might be, if the rules that were put in place last year, if we'll have those again next year. Nobody quite knows yet, but this was more of a how many people would be interested in playing, and here we are. We are all signed up, ready to go.
We're here. We're ready to play. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons potentially why not.
Potentially, yeah.
We'll see. I'll have to see how that goes. So a lot of fun discussions, certainly locally for us with the various teams, the team that we play together on, and then our respective Thursday teams. There's been some discussion, so it's kind of gotten me back into wanting to play again.
Yeah. I think thinking about the season we had last year, short as it was fun, right? Like,
Yep.
It was still fun. I just sort of been away from the ice for so long that it's starting to get that itch, that let's go curling itch. Yeah. Also, it's really hot, so like let's just get in the cold, cool down a bit.
Sounds good right now.
Sure does.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of fun and curling, let's get to our guest today, Scott.
Yeah.
It is the one and only Greg Smith. The most entertaining man in curling?
Yeah, I think we could say that.
Is there anyone, like, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody else who is more fun out there on the ice.
He definitely has fun playing the game, and it's nice to see, right? It's a bit of a breath of fresh air compared to, some of the professionalized teams that maybe they've had a little media training, not willing to lay it all out there, but this guy really has a good time and lets everybody know.
Yeah, and a bit of a showman out there. It was a fan favorite, his first appearance in the Brier a couple years ago, and certainly this year was a buzz on Twitter whenever he had the shots that we saw the updates on, and of course had that great around the horn double that he made that ended up on the 1v1 on SportsCenter for a while. So a really fun guy, and we wanted to reach out, talk to him because it is June, it is Pride Month, and he is openly part of the LGBTQ+ community and very open about the need for representation in sport at the highest level. There was, of course, that great moment during the Brier where he played against John Epping, the first two openly out skips to play each other at a Brier. So we wanted to talk to him about that particular game. I was a little curious about the coverage of it and how they felt about it in the moment, and just a little bit about representation at the highest level and the situation in Newfoundland. I asked him about a situation that he tweeted about over the weekend where there was a pride flag stolen from a school and what appeared to be a burned pride flag as well. So just the situation and how we can all live together in a respectful way, and so that these incidents don't happen anymore, and that youth can feel safe in their communities. So Scott, unfortunately, our schedules clashed for this one, so I had to run solo, and I know you were disappointed because you really wanted to talk to Greg Smith.
Yeah, I was really excited, but you know what, Sean, I'm sure that you did a great job, and I'm really excited to listen to it since I wasn't able to be there for it.
All right, so let's get right to my discussion with the one and only Greg Smith. All right, and Greg Smith joins me now from St. John's. Greg, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It is sunny in St. John's, which is a new thing.
Yeah, I've been to St. John's once, and it was not very sunny when I was there. Windy and
No.
cloudy. That was my experience.
Yes, it does heat up sometimes, but not as often as we'd like either.
Right. As we talked about in the intro, it is Pride Month. Greg, you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and you did tweet before we get into the curling side of this. You did tweet yesterday about an incident that took place in St. John's, and it really just centered on, or for me when I was reading about this, why this stuff still matters, why representation matters, why things like Pride Month matter. So could you just explain to folks who might not have seen it what happened in St. John's?
Yeah, so not in St. John's proper, but in metropolitan St. John's at 3 schools, the pride flags that were put up for Pride Month were taken down. One of them was found in the next city next door in a trail that was lit ablaze, and it was burnt. And it was devastating to kind of hear about that, especially knowing that the effect that that would have obviously on the students, and some of them especially trying to come to terms with who they are as people and who they're made to be, and the detrimental effects of seeing something like that happen in your own city, in your own community, and your own school. So I think, it really echoes and it kind of signals the importance of visibility, the importance of Pride Month, and how it should be something that is talked about all year round and not just a shtick for some businesses for this month, but something that it is discussed more openly and something that isn't that homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia isn't tolerated. And I think that people today, even I've noticed it even in some of the friend groups I'm in, some people are not as they don't see it as detrimental as misogyny. They don't see it as detrimental as racism, and they just kind of brush it off, especially the cis white guys. So I think that calling it out and not accepting this kind of behavior is going to go a long way in moving forward as society and moving forward as queer people and helping the next generation be able to be themselves.
Yeah, as you say, it's very important. There was a list that was put out. I saw it too. I don't know who it was who put it out, but it was companies that are selling rainbow merch this month, but also a list of their donations to people who have voted against the community at various levels of government. So it's kind of interesting to think about. Yeah, right. Like it's really
Yeah.
it is awful. But how would you say, like, where is Newfoundland in general? Like, I would hate to believe that that incident is representative of the community at large. But I also saw some stuff as I was reading after you tweeted about this, that there is a sense that, I feel fortunate. I live in Ottawa, a pretty big metropolitan city where the community is pretty welcoming and welcomed
Totally.
overall. But how would you just assess where St. John's is, or Newfoundland in general, on these issues?
So I think that you're always going to hear, and I'm obviously someone that has had them. You're always going to hear very terrible stories, and I have some terrible stories that have happened to me. However, I think that Newfoundland and Labrador is not as bad as what some of the people on social media have made it out to be. One of the older, I think it was one of the first gay bars in Canada, started in St. John's, and we've had a very important, queer scene in the city. I think the issue lies actually in more so than anything is people's perception. I'm going to say it as this: people's perception of male sexuality, homosexuality, and bisexuality. Um, in that, I mean more so of the very masculine old school boys club that kind of see it that as a demasculine thing. They see it as a lack of masculinity, a lesserhood of being a man. So that's kind of the stuff I think that is. And I think that obviously when you leave St. John's, uh, there's different demographics and different groups of people that people are associated with, and there's less of a queer scene maybe in a Bay community as opposed to cities like St. John's or Corner Brook. But I think as a whole, we are not that bad. I think the issue actually lies a lot with, like I said, cis men who think that queer men are less than them and should be persecuted and discriminated against. All of the persecution that I have faced, unless it was online by an old conservative right wing Christian, everything that I've faced, and I'm a Christian as well, so I just throw my Bible back at them and tear them to shreds. But everything I've faced actually been people under the age of 30 and probably my age or younger. And I've had two incredibly disgusting experiences downtown here on George Street, and just disgusting. And I'm a person that is quite, we would say in Newfoundland, quite saucy, so I don't mind picking up for myself and telling them off and how to get there and holding my own. However, I know somebody who wouldn't be in that, who wouldn't have that in their wheelhouse, might not get over that, and that might just spiral. And I think that those kind of behaviors, the kind of boys talk, the one thing I noticed too, I'm going to throw out there, I think that gay jokes are so disgusting. So in the fact that, and I know some of them might be harmless in their mind, but I seen somebody actually on my Facebook, and they went in, it said they're in a relationship, but it didn't state who the relationship was with. And this guy was, I'm pretty sure he's a heterosexual. However, they said, who is he? And they were making jabs at that. And I think that even just those harmless kind of jokes can keep somebody in the closet, and it can also be detrimental to maybe that person's younger cousin who's gay and doesn't know it, or somebody else. So I think we got to kind of get off of that. But as a whole, and in my honest opinion, I think Newfoundland and Labrador is leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of places in this world. And I think that St. John's has a very, very vivid and lively gay community. And I would say, on another note, I would say some of the best drag in this country.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That a lively drag community out there. Certainly,
Yes.
yeah. Drag is one of those things where I've never been to a live drag show, but it does seem like it is.
Gotta go.
But like in the last 10 years, and I assume the show has a lot to do with it, but the drag community is just completely blown up, and it's almost mainstream at this point, it seems.
I think it is elevated, and I've done drag a few times. I haven't done it since St. John's Pride 2019. I don't know when I'm doing it again, but I think that it is something that has helped queer people come into the mainstream, and it is a show now that, I mean, straight women have always loved drag, but now their boyfriends are watching it with them, and now there's a deeper understanding of queer people and queer culture. And I don't, some people might think it's a negative that it's becoming mainstream, but I actually think it is a positive. And I think that more queer people on TV and more queer people, just embracing who they are, sorry, not embracing who they are, but just being who they are, they will be embraced for that. So I think that that is incredibly instrumental in moving forward in all aspects. But drag is a kind of a medium that has helped.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'll go when we're allowed to do things again. We're not allowed to, we're not allowed to do anything. So,
we haven't missed a beat much here. So I guess it's a different world on the mainland.
Yeah, that's a benefit of being an island, I guess. You can sort of contain everything. So you mentioned the sort of the demasculation associated with queerness and the jokes, and sort of basically every gay joke is like you're lesser than because that's basically what the implication is. And we saw even last week there was a young tennis player who in the middle of his match just started screaming derogatory terms. Like this does tend to be associated.
Oh, I missed this. I'm gonna have to look this one up.
Yeah, it was on the junior circuit. It's an 18-year-old kid. I think he's Belgian, but I don't know for sure. But so it was really upsetting certainly to see that. But I'm curious. You're obviously a high performance athlete. You've been to two Briers and other national events.
But
How would you assess the state of curling associated with these issues? Does that masculinity and that othering, do you see that in the sport at the highest level, at the ranks that you have competed in?
well, first I want to say that there's a ton of queer people at the high level of curling, and it is incredible to see. And so we haven't been held back in any way, shape, or form there, which is great. But I think, like I said, I think with Devon, I think that for me, I haven't really faced it by curlers directly. Maybe, sometimes I've been underestimated and they use the kind of the queer guys as that, and they thought, oh, this is just whatever. But or kind of pin that then I guess on my flamboyancy. But I mean, I couldn't tone that down if I tried. God damn it, right? I wouldn't be able to. I'm all go. But I think that might be it. I think for me personally, I might have been underestimated, and then I probably beat them, hopefully, or bet them. I don't know Newfoundland can't speak English, right? But, yeah, I haven't dealt with it a lot. I know that there is a lot at the high level, and I think that is important. And I'm glad that, some of us and a lot of us are visible about that and open and transparent about that, because that is only going to pay dividends for young queer athletes, not even just in curling, but in general. I know that there's been some really lovely messages that's been sent to me on Facebook by moms here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I got emotional by it, and I'm glad that I was able to have some level of an impact on them and on their kids.
That's good to hear, because again, if we're gonna think of a stereotype of, again, that cis male, sort of very masculine, very, if I could, broy. Not to throw out any particular names, but just from seeing on TV, and I've been around a couple events in media areas, there are people who I would have expected or potentially maybe thought could fall into that category of not being the
Yeah.
most welcoming. So it's good to hear that you haven't had to deal with anything directly, at least, and that my perception or my stereotyping
Yeah.
of them is wrong.
Yeah, and obviously we might be on the same page, but those people that you're thinking of are actually the most lovely people and open and accepting people, right? So it is great to see, and
Yeah.
I haven't had an issue with any of those people in any way, shape, or form. Just they've been fantastic.
All right. Well, that's
Yeah,
great to know. So,
yeah,
back in the bubble in March,
yeah.
there, of course, there's one thing. Now, this is unrelated to what we were talking about, but I've said it on the show before, and I just wanted to say it to you. The fact that they had you play Gushu in an evening draw was ludicrous when it was a 10 o'clock start in Newfoundland. You guys that should have been a morning game or an afternoon game. It should have been the feature. Everybody in the province would have watched. Huge missed opportunity for TSN.
I wouldn't have played the run double for two then. I would, if I knew I was going to be on the telly, I would have drawn for one and tried to keep it close. But no, yeah, I think this is the second time now. I think 2018 we were the last draw the last night. It was like, oh great, there's a game that kind of decides who goes to the playoffs, and
Yeah.
we've been a 5-in wonder for the week, so we're not going to be there. So
Yeah, just yeah, that was I never understood that scheduling decision, but I
yeah.
think the game that got more attention was your game against John Epping, against Team Ontario, and the first case, at least I think, the first game between two out skips
Yeah,
at a Brier. And
yeah.
I'm curious to know what your thought was in the moment and since about the coverage of it, because obviously this is a big moment. And as you say, you want this representation, you want young kids across the country to see that you can succeed in sports, no matter who you
Totally.
are. And yet on the broadcast, it didn't come up. It was just, here's Newfoundland against Ontario. And it wasn't a theme in the broadcast coverage. It was on the TSN.ca coverage, it came up, and certainly Devon's wrote a story about it, and other outlets wrote a story. But I was curious to know if you were even aware that it wasn't included really in the broadcast, and what your thoughts might be on that.
I never thought of that lens. I never took that lens before. I never looked through it that way. Um, there's been gay skips that have curled against each other at the very high level, and but from my understanding, not at a Brier, and from my understanding, maybe not even at a Worlds. I don't even know if it happened at a Worlds. So though there is, queer men and women in curling at the incredible high level, and they've definitely played against each other. But yeah, we didn't get the picture before; we got it afterwards. So maybe, maybe they didn't really kind of think that one through, right? However, they had to assume that I was not straight, and I think they knew that one, and they knew that John wasn't. So maybe, I don't know how many times you got to do 2 + 2. However, I don't see that as that big of a deal. I'm glad that it got the coverage it got on online, and then talking about it with Devon and Colleen, and talking about it with the news here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So, I think it was huge. But I never looked at it through that kind of lens that they didn't discuss it prior. But I didn't think about I didn't think about it during the game. I was just, oh God, I gave up 5 there. If I made that draw up to the guard, it would be different.
Well, so part of my thinking at the time, and I still kind of think this way, is that John has been there enough, right? He's been on enough broadcasts that, and this is maybe my super optimistic way of looking at it, is that the TSN crew just think of John as John, the guy from Toronto, and not John, a gay curler. And therefore, it might not have occurred to them because, it's Ontario against Newfoundland. And just that not being front of mind for them because it's so normalized that it's just John is John. And it reminds me almost of Rick Mercer. I remember he was quoted once as saying, like, how many times does somebody have to come out? Like, that it's just sort of, he's Rick Mercer and that's just who he is. And I wonder if John Epping's at that point where it's not going to be part of John's narrative or stories about him because he's just John at this point.
Totally, but John, however, is a great advocate and a great ambassador. So he doesn't shy away from that. So, and the whole picture, John reached out to me and was like, "Do you have a pride flag?" And I was like, "I do not have a huge one." So he got one, and then we got the picture. So the picture was John's idea, which was really, really lovely. And John is a good friend, and got to know him over the past couple of years, and he's fantastic. But I think you have a point there. I think they probably looked at it as, oh, he's here for the Canada Cup, he's here for this, he's here for that. Greg is here to win a couple games and go home out of it.
No, Greg is here to get the best hot mic moments of the week.
Oh.
And
Listen, I won't joke on my Brier record. I will be back. Hopefully, I'll be in a few more telecasts in years to come.
Yes. Yeah, we're all rooting for that, for sure. And I know Kathy Gauthier, too. Kathy Gauthier seems like your number one fan. Just
she's incredible. She's incredible.
So as you mentioned that you've gotten a lot of positive response from folks. How do you think that you being there, that John Epping being there over and over, you have players like Elena Stern, who unfortunately for curling fans has announced that she's going to step back from the sport, but you have a lot of people globally who are out and supporting the community. What do you think the impact is of this for younger generations? Maybe not even of just curlers, but kids turning on TSN at night and the curling's on, and here we have these folks out there competing at the highest level. Like, what do you think the ultimate impact could be on young kids who are going to go into sport?
Totally. I think that the press covered that very well, and I think so like how many media agencies, across the country took up on that story and shared it. I think it was great, and I think it was very important, and I think it was wonderful. And I did the DEI for curling on LGBTQ plus people and inclusion. That I did that with Elena, and she was wonderful. But yeah, being vocal and being open about that is only going to really elevate the profiles of queer people and us in the community, and also people who want to do things in the community. So I think that those moments like that are very important, and they're very integral in moving forward. And for the next generation, like I said, I think prior, not to this conversation, but another one, growing up, I never saw that kind of representation. It took a long time for me to be comfortable and open with who I am, and I never got to see people, whether it would be in politics, until uh, people like Gemma Hickey, Jerry Rogers here in Newfoundland, Seamus O'Regan, um, and some of them have became friends, which is wonderful because they're trailblazers and people in sport. I think Tom Daly was one of the first ones that I seen watching the Olympics. So I never had that when I was young and when I was really unsure of who I was. And I don't think that, you know, if you have a level of sorry, if you have a stage to talk and you have some level of notoriety in anything, I think that you have to be vocal about the issues. You have to discuss them. You have to be transparent. You have to be open because sure, it might be uncomfortable for you, but it's about the legacy that you get to leave. And I hope that any legacy that I get to leave, whether it is in politics, sports, music, whatever I do, I hope that that is one of love, and I hope that that is one that people coming behind me are going to look and say, you know what, I'm glad that somebody came before me. And even though it's 2021, I think if I get elected at City Hall, I might, as far as I know, I might be the first queer man elected.
Wow.
So, and it's 2021, right? So I think that anybody that has any level of notoriety, whether it is sports, and we have a lot of wonderful, great queer advocates in curling, but whatever it is, speak up because you can really, really be so instrumental and so helpful to somebody else in their journey. Not just the people who are younger than you, but the people that are older than you too. Because, you know, people older than me probably even have a harder time to come out. Somebody who is in their 40s, or their 50s. So really, it is about being transparent. It's about being authentic and just talking to the issues and calling out crap. Because if we just talk about this utopia for queer people, we're really not talking about the issues that are at stake and things that we face each and every day. We have to talk about the whole can, not just the lid.
Right. Very, very well said. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I'll say too, like it's easier to spread love and joy than it is to
Mhm.
like hate people. It takes a lot of energy, I think, to hate people.
Well,
Come
everyone's
on.
just jumping in.
um, so Greg, just I just want to say I do think that having you at the Brier this
Yeah.
year and back in 2018 certainly just you're a very entertaining player, no question about it, on the ice. But also just that passion you bring, the representation, and you being a strong voice for this. I know for me personally, I was I found it very moving, and I appreciate how vocal you are, and hopefully we're rooting for you in your campaign out there, and to continue all the work that you're doing. But there is one question that is curling adjacent that I really want to ask you. You won the 2021 Newfoundland Tankard. Now,
Yes.
do you remember your immediate reaction when you won the game when the other shot was missed?
I think I just hugged my third, and I think that I broke him. I think I just, as we say in Newfoundland, I completely squat him. What was my immediate reaction? It was all a blur.
So you
'Cause
jump.
I thought I lost the game twice, and I thought I won it once, maybe in the seventh end.
Well, okay, yeah, like so the shot you made in 12 was I would say you won the game in 12. You got a pretty
Yeah.
big break. You got a pretty big break in 11, but
You
you
not
won the
see
game.
my behind the scenes sweeping. If I was allowed to do that, you should have seen it.
That's right. Yeah. No, but so you jump when
Oh,
the game was over. You had a jump, and we've debated on this show multiple times who got more airtime. You winning the 2021 Tankard or Kevin Cooey at the 2017 Trials, and we think combined the two jumps were around 8 inches. If you added them up, because neither of you seem to get great vertical leap, and I blame it on the fact that you were both wearing a slider at the
that's
time,
right.
so you can't
That
get
is
it that much power. But
right.
you've played against Kevin Cooey.
Mhm.
Settle this for me. Between the two of you, who do you think has the bigger vertical leap?
I think that Kevin Cooey is way more loud and vocal. I think it's certainly Kevin.
Okay.
Certainly. However, if I get two grippers on, I'm going up to the roof. So,
Okay.
I just need to get that kind of traction and then I can go. But, yeah, no.
All right.
Probably Kevin.
All right, well, I appreciate you settling that for me, Greg. I appreciate it. Where can people find more information if they want to support your campaign? Obviously, if we're not in St. John's, we can't vote for you. But if people want to send their support, find out the work that you're doing, where can they find more info?
So my website is gregsmithnl.com. So there'll be stuff there on the campaign. However, I think that some of that is under construction. So Facebook is a good one, and just my regular profile, the same handle, Greg Smith NL, and my page, which is Greg Smith for St. John's. So yeah.
All right. Well, check it out, everybody. Greg, we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much. Take care.
All right. So there you have it, my chat with Greg Smith against Scott. It's too bad that we couldn't make it work, but what'd you think of what Greg had to say?
Sean, as always, Greg's got a lot of interesting things to say. He's a really articulate guy when it comes to things like this. A great member of the community, and really interesting to hear from him.
Yeah, so we definitely thank him for his time and for joining us today on the show. Really appreciate him joining us all the way from Newfoundland. And he was so funny when we were going back and forth and we were talking about times and stuff. He made sure to specify Newfoundland time.
Yeah.
Versus other times, which is always a lot of fun for me. I for the history show, when we deal across time zones, people just tend to say like 4 o'clock. I'm available at 4 o'clock, without specifying what time zone that is. So it's kind of nice for him to do that. So if you don't yet, do follow Greg on Twitter. He is at Greg Smith NL, and you can keep up with everything that he's got going on out there in St. John's. Very active guy. And again, we thank him for his time. And of course, as always, if you're out there and you want to do more to support the LGBTQ plus community, and particularly maybe in the curling context, do reach out. There's a lot of resources available, and we, along with other members of the community, can certainly point you in the right direction for some of those resources that are coming out. And it's been great to see over the past month. New resources are coming out, a lot of discussions, a lot of materials available. So it's just a great thing to see, Scott.
Absolutely, Sean. Absolutely.
All right, so that will do it for this week. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. If you have not yet, please do subscribe to the show wherever it is you get your podcast. Do the likes, the ratings, comments, all that fun stuff. Helps keep us going, grows the show. And do follow us on social media at Game of Stones Pod. You can find Scott at Scott Lakes TV. I am at the Sean Graham. And you can head on over at GameOfStonesPod.com. All of our past episodes are there, including our trip to the 2019 Gay Nationals, which I'll also put in the show notes of this episode. If you haven't heard it yet, that event was at the Ottawa Curling Club. Really a terrific event. It was a lot of fun. And they were nice enough to let us hang out for a while and catch up with a couple of the players. So do check that one out. That is a roving event. It travels the country. Didn't happen this year, but would expect it to happen next year, hopefully.
Hopefully, Sean. Yeah, it was a really fun event. A lot of great curling. And you're right. It was very nice of them to give us some time to talk and let us hang out for a bit.
Yeah, so like I said, I'll put that in the show notes, but it's also available over at GameOfStonesPod.com, and the merch is there as well. All the proceeds from the T-shirts are going to Food Banks Canada. All the rest of the merch, the proceeds are for the Sandra Schmirler Foundation. We are matching all of that as well. So check that out. Eventually it'll get cold again, so the toque and the hoodies might be useful to you at that point.
Or just blast your AC really cold and wear them inside your house, right?
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back with you again next Tuesday for another new episode. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.